Happy Halloween, friends of Old Man Brad and friends of the Real Feels podcast. Ooh, it is Halloween. This episode is coming out on Halloween.
It's the spooky time.
It is. And Drew and I are back with another joint episode for all of our great, spooky, frightful fans out there. We have a couple great things this week. We're going to finish up our hashtag 100 Days of Horror, as today, Halloween is the last day, 100 days since we started this. When did we start it? July
23rd.
There you go. July 23rd until Halloween. We did 100 movies, at least 100 movies in 100 days. I know you kind of stuck to that one
I was kind of keeping my pace with it. I didn't want to overdo it this year. I think last year when we did 150 days, I had actually done 286.
I know you went crazy. So I think I only did 175. Yeah. I think is what I did on the 150.
I went bonkers last year. I was trying to be a little conservative this year with this.
A little, yeah. That's quite a cutback from.
It is. I'm actually following my own rules.
I think I went over the 100. I did 120-ish, I think it is, or so. So, I mean, I still went over, but I didn't go crazy because I did my Terror on Tubi watches along with this. So
some of those, if I could slip in Terror on Tubi into the hashtag with the post for 100 Days of Horror, I made it work. Same thing with my other little scavenger hunt. Because sometimes, as I told you, we love movies and I love watching movies all the time, but even sometimes there can be too many movies.
Yeah.
There's not enough hours.
Even some weeks, I mean, when we do our Tubi Tuesday, theme watches,
right?
I mean, there are some times I'm like, I'm going to watch 3 or 4 movies today. And then some days I'm like, I think one's enough. I'm just feeling one to this week.
I have such ambitions on certain Tubi Tuesdays because I'm like, man, I like this theme. That's great. I have 3 or 4 movies lined up. And it usually ends up being one.
But that's okay.
The goal is there.
Yeah. Also, being it is Halloween, we're not talking the movie Halloween, but we are going to discuss the anthology horror film 1031, which takes place all around Halloween. So you get kind of I don't want to say twofer, but it's a big extravaganza, a frightful extravaganza, as you will. So, Drew, what do you want to start off with? You want to talk some hashtag 100 Days of Horror, or do you want to jump into 1031?
I think that we should do some 1031, get the folks out there to understand exactly what this horror anthology is, and then we can give them the smattering of a buffet.
I think that's good. Let's jump into 1031.
Welcome to my Halloween Monster Marathon with me, your host, Malvolia, the Queen of Screams. Does he always wear that mask?
All the time.
Definitely a good way to cap off Halloween night.
I don't have any candy.
All those naughty kids love their Halloween.
1031. This is a horror anthology film that came out in 2017. This is the first of 3 parts. There are 3 of these at the time this comes out. I don't know if they plan on making more or not. And Drew, you and I are both fans of horror anthology films. We watch quite a few of them. With any anthology, some stories are usually better than others.
Of course.
And same overall, depending on how they put it together. Is it just a smattering of short films, or is there a wraparound kind of thing weaved through? And 1031, it has that wraparound in it. Gives you the bookends, I guess, with the shorts. I'll read you the synopsis from IMDb. A Halloween treat bag of all the things that go bump in the night, from mass killers to scarecrows, witches, and tricksters. There's a scare for everyone in this anthology of horror. Before we kind of really dive into the stories and such, what were your overall thoughts on 1031? I know both of you and I have seen this movie previously, a couple years ago, and we're coming back to it. You had the suggestion, Tuesday lands, because we were talking Tubi Tuesday. We're like, it lands on Halloween. We should do a 1031 Halloween episode with everything. I was like, let's do it. So what did you think of 1031? Did a rewatch make it any different?
And the rewatch, I think, was better because I now had some familiarity of just remembering when the movie originally came out, because I know it came out in 2017, but I don't think I watched it until, I think, 2019. It's fun. It's fun for what it is. And especially, I think that certain stories are actually quite impressive for an indie horror. And I think the reception for it was actually pretty good. Again, as we have already established with any anthology, regardless of independent horror or even something as, impactful as Creepshow, not every story is going to hit right.
No.
And overall, I thought this was done well. Some of the acting, it's in a few stories, it's not even campy, but it's very like, no, Barbara, come back. Like, some of the acting is like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you almost like to say, okay, I'm going to smile and nod and just see where this goes. And overall, you have a good time with this anthology.
Oh, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And I didn't see this. I think it was 2 years ago, I think, is when I checked this one out. It definitely is that. I think the first 3 stories are the strongest, and the last 2 kind of falter off a little bit, in my opinion. But it's still a fun indie show.
I would agree that the old hag, the trespassers, and the killing dance is the roller rink one, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think, you know what? I would agree. I think those are probably the strongest. The Halloween Blizzard of 91 is definitely the one that actually has probably the worst acting in it. But I think it has the most unique concept.
I agree.
And then the Sanheim slasher, I don't know. That one just didn't. I think that's the weakest.
That one is a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah.
It has some good moments, but then
it has a good kill. It has a really good kill of one of the guys at the party. But other than that, like, it almost, I think, has like a red herring that you think it's going to be X, but then it really turns out to be Y, and Y makes sense, but you almost hoped it to be X. Either way.
I mean, we love anthology films. We love indie horror films. I'm a big supporter of indie horror films, and tell everybody, like, go see indie horror. Especially, I feel like indie horror, they can kind of put a lot more passion into it than, say, a big budget. But I love it all. I just love horror in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you stated the 5. We had the Old Hag, Trespassers, Killing the Dance, the Halloween Blizzard of 91, and the Sam Haines Slasher were the 5 segments in 1031. And then you had kind of this bookend of Malvolia, the Queen of Screams.
Yes. It was almost like, so you start off with the kids. They're either home from, they have to be home from trick-or-treating. And that's how they're wrapping up their evening. They're kind of sitting down to this, wish.com kind of Elvira persona. And
I mean, she's like a late night host that they turn on.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like Elvira's movie Macabre. And, she has this, like set of spine tingling tales.
Yes.
And the kids are just easily just sitting down, chowing on the candy, just having a good time.
The wraparound piece, the bookend piece, I guess, it doesn't really wrap around because she doesn't really come in the middle. It's kind of like she's at the beginning, she's at the end, and then it's over. I mean, it was fine. It wasn't the best, but if you look at it like it's a late night cable access like host coming on to show you some horror films, like, it worked.
Yeah.
And then we get into our first segment, the Old Hag, which, I mean, I thought was pretty good.
I thought it had some of the best acting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because like the responses, and I don't know why everybody in this they're not exactly familiar, but the camera guy, and I can't remember exactly who plays him, but the camera guy looked familiar to me.
It has a lot of the same people who did the Barn movies as well. So I think he was in
That's probably why.
probably one or both of the Barn movies.
That's probably why. But yeah, no, this one was fun. I like that. I like the idea. Like, there's a lot of misdirection, and there's a lot of, we're going to look around this house and like, ooh, this is a cool shot. I actually liked the shot where he's looking up the stairs and that little cavity in between the stairwell. Mm-hmm. And suddenly he just sees someone up there, and then he looks back and he looks again, and then, gone.
Yeah.
And of course they're like, we know where this is going. The makeup for this is probably, again, I think they did their job right by starting off strong.
Yes. And I think that you kind of need to in an anthology. If you start off really like slow, like if it was, I think one of the weaker ones, the Sam Hain Killer. If you started off with that one, I would have been like, oh.
No, like I'm going to turn this off.
I'm in for either a long, hour and a half or. But yeah, they definitely started off strong and got me hooked. I was like, okay, I'm in. So when we finish up that story, we move into the Trespassers. And I think between this one or the Killing the Dance, I don't know. It's between these two that were my favorite of the stories.
The Trespassers, I like the concept.
Mm-hmm.
For the Trespassers, and because I'm a big, and of course, folks, anybody listening, you should just be fully aware. Spoilers are going to come. I'm a big fan of vampires. Okay, the fact that the vampire is struck down, strapped to the cross, and they become the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Okay, but then the question is like the people who come back and say like, this is our land. This has always been our land. We have always been here. And I'm trying to think like, okay, so were they trying to go like Native American akin, but they didn't really? Like, is it the vampires who have always lived here? If it is vampires, why are they strapping one to the cross? There's a whole lot. It's a neat little short.
Now, is it something maybe if they could have fleshed it to a feature? Could they have fleshed out more of that story or explanation?
I think a lot more could have been fleshed out because again, it's this whole thing of like, it's a local legend, which even this one guy doesn't really know, but the girl is supposedly like really familiar with it. And they're going out to this house where supposedly no one else has lived in for quite some time, yet he sees someone inside and they don't even go and investigate the house. That's what I think that's like a whole missed opportunity. If it's the case of like, oh, look, someone, they've left this Scarecrow here. And then she finds out that the Scarecrow was really a person because there's a skull inside. Again, like I think there's a lot of like fun ideas, but it's not fleshed out. Yeah. And there's a lot of good special effects and it's not fleshed out. And I love his little response of like, like, you just had to come here. I told you no. We could have gone and had a good time, but no.
If I remember right, I think this one was the bloodiest of the stories.
Yeah. One of them we get an exploding head. It's definitely there's more blood.
You kind of have to. Blood, vampires, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
And then Killing the Dance, which was our third one. It all took place in a roller skating rink with a killer on the skating floor.
Right. And a very annoying guy who looks like he should probably be on To Catch a Predator.
Yes, and his whole thing was trying to hit on every girl in the place.
Well, not even like every girl, but like the sister who, the mom is saying like, don't go out, like take your brother and you should change your outfit. You're going to get the wrong impression. Can't you go something less promiscuous? What did she say? She said, like, don't go meet that one guy. You're going to have an AIDS baby.
Yeah. And I think that was the line too. And you're like, what? But yeah, he was definitely a sleazy dude from, creepy. You see this kind of character in a lot of like older films. Unfortunately, they're out there, but
not to like ruin a moment, but like, you see this guy and you just think, Matthew McConaughey, all right.
You're just waiting. You're just like, okay, his kill scene better be the best one because I just want him to die.
Don't you? He was definitely the most annoying character.
Yes.
Although he does have that redeeming quality at the moment where, after the slasher has already started happening and he says like, get Mikey out of here, go on, get out.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to save him. But it's an interesting thing because I loved the kid. It reminded me so much of like my own kid costumes from like Halloween in years past when I was younger, where it's just like a hodgepodge of different things. Like he's a werewolf, but he's got a cloak and he has a samurai sword.
Yes.
And it's a little bit of everything. And he's got his alien voice changer box.
And my kids do that all the time. They love to dress up and it's just like,
exactly.
What can we throw on? And this is what we're going to be.
Right. And so, and you would go around on Halloween or like, you clearly have to explain to the adults and they're like, oh, and what are you? And it's like, isn't it obvious? he's clearly like a werewolf samurai ninja. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's fun to almost associate a human quality, obviously, with something that you don't see until the very end of the entire short. And that's Mikey, because you don't see his face. You don't see, you don't hear his actual voice, but he says simple lines of like, don't go, don't leave us.
Yeah.
And you're all like, oh, that's sad.
And then the ending you get with him, I mean, we're going to give some spoilers here, but it turns from a slasher to almost sci-fi-esque.
To Scanners.
Yes, exactly. and you're just like, wait, what? What just happened? It was kind of a quick turn of what happened at the end, but
right?
This story, I would love to see it as a full feature film of like this roller skating slasher.
Right.
But then somehow weave in this other piece a little bit more instead of this quick, like hard 90-degree turn at the end. And you're just like, what?
I mean, it would have been interesting. So, okay. I mean, Willy's Wonderland, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's all set inside like a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can accept that. If they were to set this entire thing inside of a roller rink, I think it would be kind of limited because like 80% of the landscape is going to be the roller rink itself. Like there's very few places to hide. Maybe if it was upstairs. Now there could be a fun little thing where if they try to escape and they go out the doors and they have to, and they're like literally like skating down the street to try and avoid the slasher. And then they like come to a hill and they have to like go downhill.
I did like how they kept showing the killer as they're skating around, and it's like you're like, oh, something's gonna happen,
because,
and then
it's like flashing lights and everything left and right. So when you get these little like little blurbs and blips of like a razor going, and it's like slicing and dicing all these people. I mean, it's an interesting thing. And then I love the reveal of who it is, and
I like the mask because it's silly, but gives it that a creepy or feel to it because it is so silly, that cowboy goofy eyed mask.
The mask reminded me of?
What's that?
It kind of reminded me of Zeke the plumber from Salute Your Shorts.
I don't think I know that.
Oh, did you not watch Salute Your Shorts?
I don't think I ever did. I know the name sounds familiar, but I can't place it in my mind right now.
It was a Nickelodeon show where they were at a camp and they had the whole Camp Bonawana. We hold you in our hearts. Nope.
Doesn't ring a bell.
It's okay, Brad. I'm only a decade younger.
Remember, I'm old man Brad.
You're old man Brad.
After Killing the Dance, we move into the Halloween blizzard of 91. Where Halloween is canceled because of a giant blizzard, but trick-or-treaters can still somehow show up.
Did you hear, like, the announcement? If you said, like, stay indoors, Halloween, unfortunately, is canceled. We're expecting 31 inches of snow. And I'm like, what? 31 inches of snow? Good God.
I've been through snowstorms like that. They're fun.
We don't get snow out here in California. We don't know what that is.
This one, I mean, you said at the beginning, this probably had the weakest acting of them all.
It definitely did.
There were so much as I was going along that it just questioned, like, they're sitting there watching the news broadcast, and it's like, Halloween is canceled, and it's like, okay, like
You have the little kids in like their Halloween jammies, and they're playing cards, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
And like Halloween is clearly canceled. You have the dad in his security outfit because that's his job. And then the mom is still dressed up like slutty Snow White, despite the fact that Halloween is canceled.
Halloween's canceled.
She's still dressing up,
and they still get trick or treaters at their door.
Which one of the kids? Because I love you have the dichotomy of like both brothers, like the younger brother. Halloween is the stupidest holiday ever. Yeah. Then the other brother, what are you talking about? Halloween is the best day of the year. And then ding dong, trick or treat.
We're not going trick-or-treating, but they show up here, and then they're
going to show up here.
I don't know. I just found this one kind of odd, and it
was odd. It's not until the reveal at the end that you understand what they're trying to do, and that's why I say like it's probably the most creative concept, for a story, but it's the weakest execution.
Yeah. It didn't work completely for me.
Right. And they started like throwing things in that would have started, but went absolutely nowhere and also made zero sense. Like, I don't know how, like, do you have a sister-in-law, Brad?
I do not. I have a sister.
Okay. Well, let's imagine you have a sister-in-law. If your sister-in-law went and took a shower and then changed and got ready for bed, and then like, do you imagine your sister-in-law walking out into the hall of your home in her underwear and just casually have a conversation with you? Because I don't.
No, not at all.
That's very odd. And then the dad like looks her up and down and gives the whole like, very nice.
Yeah.
And he starts to go in for like a kiss. And I'm like, what is this? This has no relevance. And then like in 3 seconds, there's like a noise and he has to tell the kids like, shut up in there. Like, go to bed. Last time I'm talking to you. And then the sister ducks into her room. Sorry. So that has zero effect on the story. Yeah. There was no reason for that at all. But I do love the fact that from the noises inside the room, like what the noises are coming from, and the visitor who came in and was talking to the little boy and was all like, you've been a good boy this year. I need you to continue being a good boy because I'm not letting Halloween win.
It had good moments, but overall it was just
You know my favorite part? It's in the attic when the mom suddenly goes, what are you doing in my house? Candy. I don't have any candy. Oh, she does.
More creepy trick-or-treaters.
That's your response to randomly seeing kids in your attic? What are you doing in my house?
All right, so we move to the final segment in 1031, the Samhain slasher. Now, this, I wrote in my notes, the most, in quotes, artsy of them. Like it tried to be a typical slasher, which is fine, but then it tried to, I don't even know. It just,
they tried to do, like I said, like it has like this red herring where you think that it's almost going to be like a switch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's feels like they're trying to make multiple different kinds of
references,
genres, and stuff. Like, oh, I want it to kind of be like a giallo film, or I want it to be just a straight up slasher, or I just want it to be like,
you get like a machete through the neck, which is totally like a sort of giallo-esque, kind of kill. It's so odd because like when the brother goes out and he's watching the news and you hear like the psycho has escaped from the facility, and then the psycho like rushes him at the tree line where it just stops for some reason. Like he doesn't continue where he's going. He just stops and looks at the neighborhood, and then he gets rushed. And now this will be the spoiler. I thought that at the very end, when everybody is getting strung up, eviscerated, I thought when the mask comes off that it was going to be the brother under the mask. Like, it's not the psycho from the sanitarium that you need to be afraid of. It's the teenage everyman.
Yeah.
Who the dad is like, well, where's your brother? He's like, I haven't seen him all day. It's like, oh, yeah, he's been out, killing folks, Dad. That's I almost wish if it had been the brother under the mask, I think it would have made it a better twist. I think it would have been made a better story overall. But that's just me.
Could have, but I think it just kind of, just like the one before it just kind of fell kind of flat.
I think it fell flat.
That's why I said that the first 3 in this are fairly strong, pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the last 2, it just kind of like slopes down.
By that point, people are all like, well, we've already watched like over half the movie. let's just finish it. And that sounds really harsh, but that's kind of the feel in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound harsh, but this happens with it, especially indie anthologies. I mean, it happens. They're not all going to be bangers. I mean, we'll talk about part 2 and 3 in the future, but it's that same kind of thing. Like, you have some that are much stronger than others, but it didn't affect my overall feelings of the movie. Like, I still enjoyed my time and still would,
of course,
watch it.
I think sometimes, and I remember like Joe Bob Briggs from the last drive-in actually mentioned that sometimes when it comes to things such as horror anthologies, I think that like the writers and the directors, they need to really come to that conclusion and that understanding of like, when is too much too much? Like, if they had done 4 stories instead of 5, it could have been a stronger film.
Maybe, yeah.
And even that time could have been allocated to the other stories and made them just a little bit longer.
I agree, because there are, to your point, the ABCs of death. It's 26 of short little stories, and that one gets to a point where it's like, okay, I get it. There is way too much right now. I cannot. Give me 4 or 5. Maybe you could stretch in 6 depending on how they go. But
sure.
26 is a little much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, if they either cut one or, elongated the others or whatnot. But 1031 is an enjoyable anthology watch that you should go check out. And it's one that might not be a yearly watch for me, but it's one that I'd probably throw on from time to time during the season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else you want to say about 1031? Or should we move into hashtag 100 Days of Horror?
No, I think I'm good. I'm just excited for the future joint episodes to cover the sequels.
Yes, we will be back to do 1031 Part 2 and then Part 3. So, make sure you keep it on the Real Feels and Old Man Brad, because those will be
Make
coming
sure
in the future.
You check in every Halloween over the next coming years.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
All right, Drew, you and I, we cut back from previous year. We did, this year was only hashtag 100 Days of Horror. Last year we did 150 Days of Horror. So like you said at the beginning, you kind of went a little overboard last year.
I did. I definitely did.
So this year we not only cut back the amount of watches, but we didn't go full bore in it of like, I need to watch 500 of them before Halloween.
There were people online that I saw, they were doing like the 365 day challenge and I'm like, I mean, I could do that, guys, but that's a lot even. I'm game, but that's also a lot.
It is a lot. Like, I do watch horror movies year round. Both of us do.
Yes.
We watch quite a few year round. I mean, if you look at my Letterboxd, I'd probably say a good 60 to 70 at least % of what I post is a horror movie.
Oh, 100%.
It might actually be more than that. So hashtag 100 Days of Horror. Overall, I mean, are there any movies through this 100 days that really like jumped out of, ooh, this was a surprise watch, or I really enjoyed this more than I thought I would?
So some of them that are definitely highlights from the most recent watches, not covered in previous, 100 days. Amazon original, Totally Killer.
That was a fun one.
Which I had a great time watching it. I thought it was just fun. It was kooky. The humor was good. You get a little Back to the Future style. You get a little, Michael Myers Halloween masked killer thing.
Yeah.
The misdirection. It definitely a fun film. One that was a surprise. I thought it had good bones, and there's some really good things in it. So I know The Haunting of the Queen Mary, I intrigued you for.
Yes, you told me I need to check it out. I put it on my list, but I haven't.
Yes.
I have not watched yet.
There's some good things. There's some
Okay.
definitely good things. And finally, from Gerald, who he and I discussed family-friendly horror, and he said, "Man, you got to go watch Toy Story of Terror."
Oh, yes, that is it is fun.
That was one of the best 22 minutes that I watched, and it was just so great. And I think leading up to other highlights, we both watched Dark Harvest and enjoyed the heck out of it.
I absolutely loved it. Like I think it's one of those. I didn't read the whole book. I got through most of it before the movie came out, and I watched the movie, and it's definitely one of my highlights of this season because it just has this great feel of the Halloween season, fall, the way it's lit with the cornfields and everything in this film. It's
some of the cinematography in the cornfields is really great.
Yes.
I think, unfortunately, one downside to Dark Harvest, and I think it's a very specific one that it might bother you, it might not. I think that background is not established as to how and why, and it's found in the story.
I could see that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I do.
I can go along with everything in that entire film. Why they do it and who does it, etc. But how it actually happens, I need something. I don't want to spoil that for anybody.
I mean, they give you a little bit of that, and
do they though? I mean,
they do. Obviously, you watched. There is the beginning of the credit scene. You saw where it kind of ended, but left it wide open for a sequel. But yes, they kind of hint toward it. But I know what you mean. They don't give a full background of everything. Like, yeah, I don't want to get into spoilers, but I want to tell people to go check out Dark Harvest.
Definitely go check it out. Definitely 100% go check it out. And finally, I think the crown has to go to one of the most like what the fuck kind of endings and processes through a whole film is 2022's Good Boy.
I have not watched it yet. I know.
Oh my God.
I know a lot of people that have. I mean, you and I are in a group chat that most people have, and it sounds like it's got some wild moments to it. Let's just say that. That I know you don't want to spoil anything, but that's what I don't want to spoil
anything. I don't want to spoil anything. I will say that they did a fabulous job with watching the trailer. You think it's going to be one type of movie, and I was down for it. Like, I was down for what I thought the movie was going to be, and then watching it completely turned the tables.
Okay,
and it was not that kind of movie. It was something completely different, and while I think I was slightly disappointed that it wasn't the kind of movie that I thought the trailer was making, it was still incredibly enjoyable. And the twist ending 100% makes up for it.
Okay. I will make sure I put it on the list. Like, I've had enough people talk about it that I think I need to check it out. I think another highlight for me is The Puppet Man, which you can get on Shudder. I knew nothing about the movie going in aside from it's the director of Superhost, which is also on Shudder, and I enjoyed that film, but knew nothing going in. It is slow in moments, but overall I really did enjoy the film quite a bit, and there are a couple kills in this film that are just brutal that you're just like, holy cow, because it just sits on it for a minute and you're just like, ugh. But yeah, The Puppet Man, it's I highly recommend that one. And another one is another anthology called /FM that I recently watched that I found quite fun. It's just like one we just talked about, 1031, it has some stories that are better than others, but overall, I did enjoy my time. Were there any big misses for you in your 100 days besides Pet Sematary Bloodlines?
Man,
that was probably my biggest miss for me because I was excited to check it out.
That wasn't part of my 100 Days of Horror. I watched that as part of my I think my movie Scavenger Hunt, or I might have just watched it just in general. And
Just
I didn't
'cause.
count it for either. Yeah. Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, it's not what I thought it was going to be.
No.
I think we both agreed too many people had too many fun ideas and they didn't throw away anything.
Yeah.
And then they tried to cram them all into the same jar and nothing was allowed to breathe.
I agree.
As for some hits or misses with 100 Days of Horror, I've been kind of filling in some gaps. And by gaps, I mean, it's like, it's late and I don't really want to like get super invested into something new. So before, usually I would like go to bed or kind of like wind down. I've been filling in a lot of the spots for 100 Days of Horror recently with either like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or Riff Track movies.
Okay.
And it's a great way to watch older horror films, from like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and still get the movie and still get a good bit of humor, which
Just have a good time.
and you just have a good time with it. And I mean, I don't think it's to the credit of the original film, but it's almost like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Rocky Horror Picture Show by itself is not a good movie.
No, but it's the experience.
It's the experience and watching it with like an audience, right? Where you get those callbacks. It was the audience experience that made the Rocky Horror Picture Show something so much more. So with the things like MST3K and Riff Tracks, it's something so humorous. It makes the movies worthwhile. They bring in like pop culture references, which makes, again, movies from like hell, some of them even like 70 years ago,
Mhm.
just a bit better and kind of worth your time.
And some of those, like if you watch it just by itself, you could just like pacing's different, everything else is
It's-
different, and you're just
Yeah.
like, come on. And
Some of them I think
could see that making it much more entertaining for sure.
Right. Some of them I think I might watch by themselves. I also appreciate the fact of the humor being integrated into these shows or in these movies because
Mhm.
a lot of them I wouldn't go grabbing on my own. I wouldn't without like the humor, it probably would have gone unwatched. And I'm really glad
Okay.
that I have
All right.
the ability to watch them
Well,
like
there
that.
you go. Before we, wrap up our 100 Days of Horror, are there any familiar faces that you watch during your 100 Days of Horror that, you're like, these are ones that I just have to watch? Like for me, I always talk about this movie since I saw it in 2019, and that's Candy Corn. It's become a yearly watch for me. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite indie horror films. Obviously, we have Halloween. Night of the Living Dead for me is always a yearly watch. Trick or Treat, I know. I don't watch Trick or Treat
Yeah.
every year, but I do wind it in there from time to time.
Some of these are not going to make it into like the 100 Days of Horror because, again, I'm only going to count like one of them. Trick or Treat obviously was in my 100 Days of Horror for today. It is a staple. It is a yearly watch.
Yeah.
I always try to keep things fresh because despite the fact that like certain horror movies I absolutely adore, I'm not one of those people who like, I can watch John Carpenter's Halloween every week. And I'm like, that's a lot of that's a lot of Halloween. Now, I mean, I'll watch movies like every like 2 or 3 years.
I mean, you
know what I
only
mean?
do that with movies like Psycho Goreman. That's what you should watch once a week. And,
Exactly. Psycho Gorman or, Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward in Tremors. I can watch that weekly.
okay.
That's definitely something I can watch every week. But I mean, something that I do try to get around like every Halloween, I'll try and watch things like, I need me some Jeffrey Combs. So I got to watch like things like Reanimator. And I did. I was very happy previously as part of 100 Days of Horror for this and also my movie Scavenger Hunt. I went through the whole Victor Crowley franchise again.
Oh, yeah. I did that last year.
It's just fun.
Oh, it's just stupid, gory fun is what that is.
Stupid, gory fun. You gotta love Kane Hodder as Victor Crowley. And even movies that I was like, you know what? I just need something kind of funny to laugh at. Let's rewatch it again. So I rewatched like The Babysitter on Netflix.
That's a fun, gory movie,
And
too.
it still holds up. I mean, it's not even that old, but like
No.
I was still laughing as much as the first time.
All right. then.
Okay, never mind.
I always end my Halloween season on Halloween. I always end with a Halloween movie. It doesn't necessarily John Carpenter's Halloween. It could be the 2018 Halloween. It could be H2O.
Mm.
I pick a Halloween film and I finish it off. So It just feels right to have Michael Myers finish my season. I don't know. It feels right. Anything else you want to talk about before we head on out for Halloween season 2023?
You know, I think all I would say is that if people are not wanting to kind of like invest in watching a full movie for Halloween or the spooky season, or if you want to continue those spooky season feels, guys, go check out John Carpenter's Suburban Screams on Peacock.
Oh, I need to watch that. It's on my list. I haven't watched it yet.
Go check out the new Goosebumps on Disney Plus or Hulu. I think that's about it for like new spooky kind of shows. No, wait. I think the new Creep Show came out recently.
Yeah,
and I always recommend Creep Show on Shudder. I will always recommend Creep Show 100%. So yeah, guys, go watch some like spooky television shows.
We keep it spooky all year around, but we might ramp it up a little bit more when it gets closer to the Halloween season. We'll get back together. Well, I mean, there'll be plenty of other episodes that you and I are going to do together, either on Old Man Brad, Real Feels, wherever it is. But next year we'll be back. Make sure you watch next year. 1031 Part 2.
Part 2.
And I'm sure we're going to have another, hashtag watch through. So, follow both of our social medias. You can follow me on @2BTuesday on X/Twitter or Old Man Brad everywhere else.
Yeah. If you want to hit up the Real Feels Podcast, just Facebook, Instagram, search for the Real Feels Podcast. On Twitter, we are @RealFeelsPod. And much like Old Man Brad and Real Feels Podcast, guys, you can find us on really any podcatcher out there. Search us up and give us a listen.
All right, Drew. Till next year, enjoy the rest of your Halloween. Woo! And we will talk to everybody later.